Welcome to the 9th lecture of this lecture series titled Introduction to Philosophy. This is a lecture in Chapter 2 on Atheistic Philosophy under the first unit titled Classical Indian Epistemology and Metaphysics. In this lecture, we deal with the epistemology of the Carvaka school of philosophy. Before that, kindly recollect that in the previous lecture, we discussed the etymology of the term Lokayata, but we did not discuss the etymology of the term Carvaka. Carvaka etymologically means sweet-tongued, that is, charu plus vak. Carvakas have sweet words, possibly referring to its hedonistic ideas. Some hold that Carvaka has its etymology in charva, which means to chew or eat. It is actually an allusion to the doctrine of eat, drink and make merry. According to Gunaratna of the 8th century CE, charva stands for chewing, grinding with the teeth, eating and swallowing virtues and vices, ideas, or if only you choose to follow their ways. We are familiar with the terms prama and pramana used in Indian philosophy. Prama is valid cognition and pramana refers to the source of valid cognition. The Carvaka school propounds that perception, that is pratyaksha, is the only source of knowledge, pramana, and criticizes validity of other sources of knowledge such as verbal testimony or inference. The question is, how did the Carvakas criticize other sources of knowledge? Take for instance inference or anumana, as it was known. Carvakas regard inference as a mere leap in the dark and argued that while proceeding from known to unknown, one cannot find certainty in inference. Carvakas argued that the deductive inference gave the fallacy of petitio principii. The words and phrases used to express the premises are synonymous with the words and phrases used to express the conclusion. This is that fallacy. In other words, the conclusion is merely a rewording of the premises. The Latin term petitio principii is translated literally into English as begging the question. Petitio means to petition or to appeal to or to beg. Principii is the principle which the reasoning seeks to explore, that is the issue in question. Recently, the phrase to beg the question has taken a different meaning. In a conversation or especially in an interview, the answer to one question may lead to or suggest a follow-up question. In that case, the questioner may introduce the suggested question by saying, "Well, that begs the question." Since common usage is the only criterion for correct usage, it is pointless to complain that this usage may be incorrect. However, it is worth pointing out that this new usage is probably due to misunderstanding of the original phrase as it has been traditionally used by logicians. Now take this example. No one is permitted to use the gymnasium on weekends since people are permitted to use the gymnasium only on weekdays. According to Carvakas, the conclusion is already contained in the major premise and the argument goes merely in circles. Carvakas also argue that inductive inference tries to prove the validity of the major premise but is also uncertain because it proceeds from known to unknown. Carvakas brought several other objections against the possibility of valid inference, which are listed down here. 1. Impressions created by inferential knowledge are not as vivid, that is aspasatvat, as those made by perception. 2. Inference always depends on other things for the determination of its objects. 3. Inference has to depend on perceptual statements. 4. Inferential knowledge is not directly produced by the objects. 5. Inference is not concrete, that is avastu vishayatvat. 6. Inference is often contradicted. 7. There is no proof which may establish that every case of the presence of the reason hetu should also be a case of the presence of the probandum, that is sadhya. In other words, there is no proof establishing the invariable and conditional concomitance between the middle and the major terms. Carvaka also did not accept testimony, that is sabda. Madhavacharya, in his Sarvadarshana Samgraha, one of the leading works on Indian philosophy, quotes their position as follows: "Nor can testimony be the means thereof, since we may either allege in reply, that is, that this is included in the topic of inference, or else we may hold that this fresh proof of testimony is unable to leap over the old barrier that stopped the progress of inference, since it depends itself on the recognition of a sign in the form of the language used in the child presence by the old man. And moreover, there is no more reason for our believing another's words that smoke and fire are invariably connected than for our receiving the ipsi dixit of Manu, which of course we Charvakas reject." Thus it is clear that testimony does not have any value for Charvakas, and accordingly Vedas are not authoritative and they are meaningless and misleading. Those who composed them aimed, according to Charvakas, to confound and confuse the common people in order to achieve their own selfish purposes. For them, perception is of two kinds, namely external and internal. The former kind involving the operation of the five senses, while the latter involves the operation of the mind. Knowledge is the outcome of contact between external object and one of the five senses, according to them. Although further knowledge may be acquired through the process of mind operating with sense knowledge. Ultimately then, to them, all knowledge is derived from the senses. Charvaka's views on inference has been criticized by many thinkers and philosophical schools. For instance, inference is an inescapable thing for Carvaka himself. To refuse the validity of inference is to refuse to think and discuss. All thoughts, all discussions, all doctrines, all affirmations and denials, all proofs and disproofs are made possible by inference. It is through inference and not through sense perception that Carvaka knows what the other doctrines are, and it is through inference that the Carvaka hopes to convince others of the soundness of his argument. Secondly, the rejection of inference itself is self-contradictory. That all inferences are invalid is itself an inference which the Carvaka must admit. Some philosophy think that Carvakas did not reject inference altogether. They did not favor the use of inference only for metaphysical categories, that is, as regards things that have never been perceived. So that's all in this lecture. See you in the next lecture. Stay safe.